4 boxes, 4 trends. Welcome to Trend or No Trend, where today I'm joined by Simon Minton and Dr. Colin Williams. Let's see what's in the box. So our first trend of the day is going to be identity.
Ooh, nice.
So identity has often been referred to as the new front line in cybersecurity. But in 2026, will that change? Will it evolve? Are things like agentic AI, artificial intelligence, and non-human identities now being the forefront of this? Are businesses likely to invest this year or next year in identity? Simon, good to get your thoughts first.
I think different sizes of organisation are going to invest in different things. This year they're going to invest in the classic, the acronym soup of IDA, PAM, IAM, and another organisation they're going to start looking at what's happening with agentic and how you've got humans, but agents are proliferating across the organisation. It could be thousands to one human. How do you manage that? How do you manage that when it's a very different paradigm from the old governance structure that we used to have? So I think there's going to be big changes in different types of organisations, depending on the maturity that they have with identity, because it didn't used to be part of a cyber. It used to be something, a different part of the organisation. Now it's becoming very much a cyber thing. So in organisations, and I'm sure you're seeing it in the organisations you talk to, different departments are having to come together. It's not just a technical thing. It's a process and a people and a departmental and a budget thing that changes as well.
Some interesting points there. Colin, good to get your thoughts. Do you agree with what Simon's been saying?
Simon nailed it. It's more than the trend. It's fundamental to how we operate in a digital world. In the same way that your name and your face are credentials that identify you, in a digital world, if you require access to a digital system, you require something that defines whether or not I have the right rights, the right authorization, the right scope. What can I do? All of that's a digital credential. So it's non-negotiable. So whether or not the conversation is about over-investment this year or next year, you should be fundamentally investing it this year. It already underpins your business. What are we doing? We're trying to evolve what we currently do, make it easier to manage, and more importantly, make sure our users who are key to it understand the importance of that digital identity they have, because that's the thing that attackers are looking for. That's the thing they compromise. And if I compromise your identity, it means I become you. That's why it's important.
And that's going to be critical. I mean, most attacks nowadays are using identity as a way in to access data and other systems. But it's just going back to your original question, when agentic AI starts to take off, which it is being used in organizations now, I think the security is some way behind, because we still are looking at it through the governance lens. What do we do when we actually need to know what's happening right now inside the organization?
We hear a lot about non-human identities at the moment. I think that could just be a service account or a certificate, or is it an actual thing at the moment with non-human identities? And how does that actually differentiate from AI and AI agents?
I think we're probably going to have to become more sophisticated about how we talk about these terms. I mean, service accounts traditionally sits in an AD, Active Directory infrastructure somewhere, and then you've got certifications which need to be managed. But then when you've got agents that can sprawl other identities, that's going to take off. It's going to, just as we discussed before, proliferate. And how do you get then, service accounts typically you can manage. They do one thing and you can manage that workflow. When you've got agents that can make their own reasoning and decisioning about what they access, and you don't have oversight of that, that's going to be massively problematic, as we're already seeing now. And I think, so we need to understand how agentic AI interfacing with NHIs, non-human identities, and how they differ, but how do we actually get a handle on it?
Colin, do you agree with these comments?
The giveaways in the name. Non-human, non-human, right? The identity is either human-driven, us, or it's something that is somewhat headless. So an ATM machine requires a non-human identity. I think the big challenge that we have is, in many cases, if it's non-human, it's a longer-lived identity. You won't change the identity, the credential, the access on an ATM machine every day.
Could there be a risk to that?
And then that's the challenge. The challenge is, because it's such a sunk credential, if it's over-provisioned, too much rights, and it's a long-lived credential and I steal it, it means I have all the access that had, and you're unlikely to notice I've got it, because you don't change it very often. Whereas a human identity, that's something we change quite frequently, so that's one. An agent isn't its identity. The digital credential that allows an agent to gain access to something, the amount of rights, the authorization, that's something that I apply as an attribute. So that agent, my biggest concern moving forward is when we have more agents than people.
Yeah.
And all of them have their own level of access.
Like 1000x,
1000x,
a million
right?
X.
And we haven't controlled the level of access that agent has to do the task I asked it to do, and then the potential other tasks that it believes it should do to get a particular outcome. Because remember, agents are goal-driven in many cases. So if you say to the agent, just finish that task by any means necessary, so it leverages other tools, and that it may require other access to do that, I've got an agent that could actually be running rogue, and if I haven't given it the right level of access, it will choose to do more than I expect it to do. So that whole understanding of identity, rights, access, authorization, credentials, all of that becomes even more important in a world that has more non-human identities, which include agents, than people.
And I guess the big difference now is that how do you manage that in real time? Because, you know, before identity has been more governance and say, this is what it should do. And now we need to manage, well, what is it doing right now? And do I need to be in the loop to say yes or no? Because I can't just let the AI agent go and do its thing because it could do something I don't want it to do.
So we can't talk about identity without talking about AI in 2026. So to summarize, in short, is it a trend or is it not a trend in 2026?
Massive trend. Massive trend.
So for 2026, I think we can agree that identity is going to be a trend, and it's not just single sign-on and Active Directory anymore.
Absolutely.
100%.
So our next trend of the day is going to be CTEM.
Ooh, we like this one.
So I think first we had vulnerability management, then we had exposure management, and now we're kind of moving into the realms of CTEM. But before we actually work out whether we think this is a trend or not, maybe Simon, you can explain what it is.
Yeah, cool. CTEM. What is it? Continuous Threat Exposure Management is the term, which is another acronym that we've had to create. But I guess if we go back in time, we're like, how have we got to CTEM? So in the olden times, in the beginning of the world, we had vulnerability management. We had to manage vulnerabilities from servers, from routers and switches and networks, and it kind of proliferated from there. We moved into the cloud, and then you've got assets that sit in the cloud. You've got OT environments and factories that we've got to manage vulnerabilities in there. So, and at the end of the day, you'd get security teams would run reports, and they'd get 10,000, 100,000 vulnerabilities in a list, and then they go, what do we do with it? We either put it, they hide it in a drawer somewhere, or they got to go to their teams, and that has never really worked. But that's where all the original kind of scanners and vulnerability management companies were born from. And then we moved to exposure management a few years ago. It's like, well, we need to prioritize. We can't just have 20,000 vulnerabilities. We've got to prioritize that to our, how likely those are to affect our environment. Are we likely to be exposed to this? Are we exposed on the internet with these types of vulnerabilities? Can we be attacked? And that has then morphed into, well, we need to do this continuously. We need to infuse threat intelligence into this, and we need to understand how we can be attacked, what assets have we got, and we need to build a program around it. And it's become much more programmatic than it was before. It was just a kind of a once a year or once a quarter exercise to it's a continuous theme, hence why the continuous is in the name.
Yeah, I think a one-time scan is only going to give you so much information, and it only gives you a single perspective at that point in time. And infrastructures can change a lot over times. But to shift the conversation a bit, Colin, do you think this is going to be better if it's adopted by blue teams or security teams when we start to look at offensive security practices as well?
This is all about managing risk. Simon talked about the word asset was the one that jumped out to me. If I don't know what I've got, if I don't know if what I've got is vulnerable or has inherent risk, I can't fix it. Right? So all this starts with understanding all your assets, understanding what your assets do, and quantifying risk. Whether it's a red team attack thing or a blue team defend thing, wouldn't it be great if I had a platform that almost acted in real time as if it was trying to softly attack my system, my environment, and highlighting to me where all the potential attack paths were, and then giving me recommendations on how to remediate them, and signposting the assets that I've got that could be vulnerable and risky. So that means if I'm the defender, I've almost got this wonderful lot of insight driven by threat intel from my platform in real time that says, your next action is to remediate that. It's to fix that. As opposed to in the past, we tried to fix everything all the time, And not all of those things were the vulnerable assets. That just takes a whole lot of time, and it's very, very unproductive.
So it sounds like it's giving you actionable intelligence on the fly. So you
manage risk.
Yeah, so you can be a lot more predictable on what's coming up and what you need to fix first, and then actually looking at what's the likelihood of this to come into effect.
Yeah, because the biggest problem for organisations is always being able to prioritise what to mitigate, what to fix, what to give back to developers or IT teams, and now it's a lot easier to, it's not easier, but now if they're working together, and I think going back to the point of blue and red teams, they're now starting to work together. The blue teams are doing this continuously themselves, and now you can get red teams and technology like Horizon 3 coming in to actually pen test that on a continuous basis. You can continually monitor your environment. And how it comes from the outside, how an attack is looking at your environment as well.
They have their within the platform, they have their perspective mode, so you can actually see, well, if I was to launch an attack from my on-premise infrastructure, what would that look like from the external point of view as well? But a bit of a touchy subject around this is, does threat intelligence get included in this space or not?
Threat intelligence gives me great insight, and if I can actually have insight that shows me the vulnerable device potentially has a exploitable threat that's being exploited in the world. For example, if I have threat intelligence that says to me, there are lots and lots of digital identities, back to that one, credentials, out in the world that look like they could be credentials from your assets. I think you should address those right now. Without that, I would have prioritized something else. But if I know the passwords and keys potentially for my assets have been found in an external dump somewhere, that becomes my priority. Threat intelligence was fundamental.
And that's really critical because API keys, tokens, they're everywhere now, and then they are the keys to your assets and infrastructure. So having a proactive visibility of who's got those, or have they been breached?
So
it's that digital identity thing again.
Digital identities come back into effect. So I've been using Flare internally. It's the vendor that we use. If you put an organisation's domain or even someone's personal email address in, you'd be super surprised, sometimes horrified, what comes up from that. But I think it's important is when you look at it in the context of an organisation and really evaluating what the impact can be.
And I guess that's the value of what channel partners can bring is help companies build that programmatic way of integrating the technology, but in a way that they can operationalize that across an organization.
And I think one thing that often gets overlooked is the OT element of it. I know Tenable got a great platform in that space as well as Radiflow, but then you start to look at the convergence between IT and OT. How is that all going to overlap? But what it really boils down to for today is CTEM, is it going to be a trend for 2026, or is it something that's going to really come in the later years?
I think it's a basic hygiene that it's gaining traction. I wouldn't say it's super hot like identity AI, but it is a trend, and companies are slowly. It's not something that companies are spending tons on today, but they realise that they've got to do it, and it's a multi-year strategy.
Multi-phase projects. Colin, what do you think?
I'll probably hedge as well. Vulnerability management is fundamental to operations right now. So every single day, every organisation undertakes a vulnerability management exercise as part of standard operations. CTEM evolves and enhances that. Right? So I'm always going to do the first one. I could gain enhancements by applying CTEM. So it's almost like saying that's an evolution of what I do today. That'll take time. Brilliant. So I'm hedging as well. It's an important investment. It's a prioritised investment, but there are other things at the moment that are higher up on the priority.
So I think we're in agreement that it is a trend.
It is a trend.
It's a trend.
It's a trend.
But a bubbling sector. So again, CTEM, trend. So our next trend of the day is going to be quantum computing. Now I'm too excited. Now I'm not going to try and explain what that is because I don't think anyone fully understands it. We do have a doctor on the show today, so maybe he'll touch upon it, maybe not. We don't know. But for 2026, do we expect this to be a trend? I know it's expected to become more mainstream in the early 2030s. Could we expect to see it sooner? Simon, what are your thoughts? Trend for 2026?
For certain organisations, it is. If you're a bank or government or defence, it's definitely a trend. But for everyone else, not yet. Except I would say, caveat by saying that you need to start planning.
Start planning. Colin, are any of your customers looking at this yet? Or is it too further afield?
So back to the earlier, is it a trend? Not yet. Is it a conversation? Absolutely. It's going to take a lot of work for quite a long period of time to get quantum ready, get quantum safe. So it's on people's radars. But as we've discussed some other things today, there are other things that are priorities. As Simon mentioned, there are sectors that have to prioritise this. Telecommunications, banking, some degrees of healthcare, defence. Anyone who has information that has a long shelf life must be thinking about quantum now. So is it a trend? It's a discussion. I wouldn't prioritise it as a trend in your parlance.
So again, we are expecting it to come more mainstream in the 2030s. It could come earlier, but when it does become more widely available, who's most likely to have access to these such systems?
I think we'll probably break it into two things, and who has access to quantum computing itself, which I think will go back to kind of how we access mainframes, that you have these computers that you can run batch jobs on them, but how will companies have to adapt? And they're already adapting. So internet traffic is becoming. Let's step back and look at what is actually happening with quantum, and it's the encryption standards are going to be crackable with quantum machines in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So RSA and ECC, two encryption standards that are commonly used across the internet, protect your banking. Everything on the internet uses TLS, TSL, TLS. Standards keep going up. The latest one is 1.3. And that is actually post-quantum cryptography ready. So the next iteration is to move to post-quantum cryptography, often referred to with a new acronym of PQC.
I'd like to think no one's using TLS because I think they'll have bigger problems on their hands. But there's a phrase I keep hearing a lot about when we discuss quantum computing is harvest now, decrypt later. Does anyone want to explain what that is, or is it something that organisations should be worried about?
So should you be worried about it? You should be aware of it. If you're in healthcare, if you're in defence, if you've got some critical secrets that have a long life, I'd say 20 years, 30 years, probably slightly more than 10, your concern will be, in 20 or 30 years, will the availability of quantum computing be so pervasive that somebody could steal my data now, harvest it, store it for a period of time, wait for available quantum cryptography or quantum computers, and then crack the current encryption. If that can happen, that wonderful data that you had is then clear text, right? So does it apply to everybody? Probably not, because not all data has a long shelf life. Some of your emails are unimportant in 10 years' time, but some very, very critical healthcare records will still be important in 30 years' time. So is it a very valid concern? Yes, it is. But people have to prioritise this and understand the scope of it in relation to the importance and criticality of their data and the shelf life of the data.
Brilliant. Simon, any comments on this?
Yeah, I think most technology providers are looking at this. They're very aware. They're aware that they need to transition to PQC standards, and they're already sort of looking at that and how to do it. And most of the cybersecurity vendors that we work with are already well into that. And then it's the transition, and then companies will have things like certification certs that are sitting there, TLS, all kinds of infrastructure around that are using older technology, and they're going to have to figure out a way to identify those and then figure out a way how to make them PQC.
So that's my biggest concern. My biggest concern is right now we don't understand the extent of the cryptography we use today. We can't discover all of our secrets. We can't discover all of our certs. We don't understand the full span of all the encryption elements that we use and all the things that we currently encrypt. So if you can't discover the scope, at the moment there are a handful of NIST certified post-quantum ready ciphers. If I don't understand what I've got, and I haven't tested whether or not the new ciphers will work with what I've got, nothing breaks, where do I start?
It feels
How do
a
I
bit
start?
like year 2K Redux. For crypto, not crypto, but for cryptography.
And that's the challenge. Many organisations right now can see that the size and scale of the problem is huge. Where do they start? And we're encouraging organisations to say, it starts by understanding what you've currently got, do an inventory, your crypto inventory, make sense of what you've got, and try and map it to the available safe ciphers, and then go through the pain of maybe changing applications, changing systems. All of that's going to take a massive amount of time.
Building automation, changing programs,
So I think the jury's out for quantum computing in 2026. Is there going to be an opportunity in channel this year, or is there not? Or is it a trend, or is it not?
I think we both hedged, didn't we? We both said that it's something you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
And in certain industries, it is that important.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, it's probably not their number one priority.
The majority of the channel, probably not.
Okay, brilliant. No trend. So the next trend of the day, I think, is going to have both our guests super excited, and it's AI, artificial intelligence. Now, I think we could sit here and talk about it till the cows come home, because it can cover so many different areas, whether we're talking about the threat actors, the blue teams, the red teams, the everyday use of AI, and where it sits in business and where it sits in life. But first, I think we should look at it from a taxonomy, and I think there's no one better to explain it other than you, Simon.
I love my taxonomies. So yeah, I think you can look at it inside an organisation. You can have it quite broad into 3 buckets. So first of all, you've got the likes of us, any employee using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it might be in our day-to-day lives. I use it daily. I'm sure you guys do as well. But you need visibility of that in the organisation. So, shadow AI is proliferating all over. So solutions have come out to kind of address the use of employees using AI within the workplace. Now, the next bucket is really around kind of SaaS platforms that have built AI into their own platforms. So, Salesforce have come out with their own agents and AI and chatbots and all kinds of things. ServiceNow has just come out as well. And then every other vendor is bringing out their own AI. So you've got to look at that. What can that do? As we discussed with identity, that can create all kinds of issues in your organization when you're letting agents run loose. So you've got to manage the governance of that and what it's doing in kind of real time. And then in the last kind of major bucket is companies building their own applications. DevSecOps, went to the cloud, building applications, and they're infusing AI into those applications as well. And that's a new attack surface for organizations, both from attacking the data, attacking the models, and attacking those with AI. So I think solutions are now starting to focus on those different areas. And obviously, at some point, we'll get a platform that looks at all of that. But right now, most of the vendors that we're all seeing are kind of attacking 2 or 3 use cases in each of those buckets.
Excellent. I mean, let's think it from the user's angle, the people actually using AI. Where do you sit on that, Colin?
I think we were discussing before we started this that the use of AI is already the norm.
Exactly.
In a very, very short period of time, it's gone from something that wasn't in the consciousness of many, unless you're an IT person, to something that junior school children are now using. Worrying.
I think the people you say, let's Google it, now it's, I'm just going to chat GPT it.
And so the nightmare that we have is, has it enhanced their productivity? Probably. And also some of the distractions they have. But as a cybersecurity professional, if I don't know they're using it, how can I secure it? If I don't know about all these various AI assets and activities happening in my organisation, how can I get visibility of it? If I can't get visibility of it, how do I put governance and protective controls around it? So the challenge that many have today is you have a massive workforce of users, either using sanctioned AI applications, the stuff that you give them, unsanctioned stuff, the stuff they have available. They're using it with good intent, but as an organisation, that's a massive attack surface. And the governance required, the concerns about are they using it responsibly, the potential for vulnerabilities, all of that rests with the job of the security team to find a way of coming back to the organisation and say, we're empowering our users to use AI, but somehow inherently secure and responsibly. That is really, really hard.
There's definitely a couple of words I'm hearing over and over at the moment here, and it's governance and visibility. But how about the use of AI in the SOC? Is this something that the teams are going to leverage to make their lives easier, or are they going to use AI agents to almost act as that tier 1 triage person?
Have to. Why wouldn't you? If AI is amazing at making sense of data. Think of a current incident. Incident happens, post-incident report, look at lots and lots of logs, look at lots of data, understand patterns, and it could take you a fortnight to write it up because you've got your normal day job. How good would it be if AI does all of that, but it does it to you in 90 seconds? So as a human, my first flinch test is a needed complete report with a level of integrity that I couldn't have actually comprehended myself. So that's one side. Equally, if attackers are using AI to attack me, surely I should use AI to help myself to defend against them using AI to attack me. So any SOC for me today that's not infusing what they do with AI is already behind the curve.
So now we're starting to look at AI versus AI. It does sound very Skynet.
I guess the point in terms of it's moving so quickly inside. You know, the agents can move so quickly. SOC is generally built more for reactive. So how do you do that? How do you manage it in real time? So I think SOCs, teams, tooling is all going to have to adapt. Also, the data pipelines that you're bringing in, they have to do analysis as it happens rather than pulling it into a database that you try and mine later. So all of that's going to change rapidly.
And then after that, it's already too late. So I think it's without doubt that AI is here. It's here to stay. It's going to change the way we work. It's going to change the way we operate in business as well. So I think we know the answer to this one. Trend or no trend?
One of the biggest trends now, one of the biggest trends next, and in my opinion, one of the biggest trends forever, because it's our current and future normal already rolled into one.
Yeah, it's like a paradigm shift where we move to the cloud, but it's bigger than that and more fundamental than that. So it's going to change everything.
Well, huge.
You've heard it first. Trend.